one piece of news I have is now officially out. I received a shipment today. I know, it's pretty great. And so it's available for purchase, and there are going to be some discounts involved. So to try to lure you in, classes sometimes tend to use this as a text. And so there'll be discounts for that as well. But I'll show you by way of explanation, just as a transition between the old and the new Plume. This is a copy of Plume Poetry 8 last year. Can you see that? Yeah. Kind of looks the same. So, you know, in marketing, I don't know in marketing, but others do, that you're supposed to keep sort of a running theme of color. And this is what the new one looks like, kind of the same idea. But that is where the similarities end. In the past, we have had anthologies, usually with 95 poets, and generally kind of a mix of very well-known poets, some not well-known at all, some internationally, some in translation. But this one is different. And as you might know, the format this time is that we have invited it's always struggle with these terms, well-established, a well-known poet to offer his, her, or their poem. And then that poet has selected not always a less well-known poet, but perhaps one who hasn't received quite the spotlight or the attention that his, her, or their partner thinks is deserved, and introduces that poet. And then we have the poem from the less well-known poet, which has a couple of advantages. It keeps me from being the sole gatekeeper of 95 poets, filtered through my own predilections and distastes. And so it was time for that to end. So what I've been done in effect is to elicit 45 guest editors, and those 45 guest editors have chosen from far and wide. The diversity of poets in this volume is just wonderful. More translated works, certainly voices that we hadn't heard always before in Plume. And it's a format that up until now, from what I can tell, has been universally in the small universe of the poetry world, been approved of, has pleased those who were invited and those who chose to contribute. And I think it's a format that will continue in the future. It's going over quite well, and I'm really pleased. In fact, I'm more excited about Plume Poetry 9 than I have been since the very first one we did, which I thought we would sell 3 copies of, and I'd lose a little money and slink off into obscurity, but it didn't turn out that way. It's kind of been very nice. And again, I wanted to get away from being the sole arbiter of what gets in and what doesn't get in, both the online magazine and the print anthologies. And I think we've succeeded at that, and I can't thank enough all of those who have contributed. And that is my little speech, as long as it was. I'm so sorry. So I'll pitch this back to Amanda, and just know that Amanda too will be offering you information about how to order the anthology and some bits about the discounts and those sorts of things, right, Amanda?
Yes, thank you, Danny. And I have posted the link that you sent, so that right in the chat area already for the anthology.
Right.
So thank you and welcome everyone, friends, to this reading in celebration of the Plume 9 anthology. I'm so delighted to be here and to be here with you all and to share this space with everyone today. Thank you again to the Writers Center and Zach especially for providing this platform and for co-hosting with us, and Zach, for all of your support. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank my Plume colleagues, our fearless editor, Danny, of course, Nancy Mitchell, who has helped to coordinate the series and moderate as well, and of course, Leah Mehta, who has been instrumental in this effort as well. So thank you. And so I want to get right to our first pair of readers today, but let me back up and just say that I am thrilled to have Elena Karina Byrne here with us, Lois P Jones, Yusef Komunyakaa, and Laren McClung. So just a fantastic group of poets, and I'm so excited to hear how all of you read and to see how your work resonates and speaks to each other. So our first pair of readers will be Elena Karina Byrne and Lois P Jones, and what I will do is I will introduce Elena, and then she will read, and when she is finished reading, she will go ahead and introduce Lois, and then we'll move on to and close out with Yusef and Laren. So, okay. So Elena Karina Byrne is a freelance lecturer, editor, poetry consultant, and moderator for the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, and the literary programs director for the Ruskin Art Club. She's a former 12-year regional director of the Poetry Society of America, and in 2018 she completed her 3 years as one of the final judges for the Kate and Kingsley Tufts Awards in Poetry. So you've done a lot of work in literary citizenship, and also in 2019 her term for the Georgia Poetry Circuit. The author of 5 books, including If This Makes You Nervous, which will be, by the way, forthcoming from Omnidon later in 2021. Elena, do you know exactly when it's coming out?
I believe it's October 1st, but as you know, given all the circumstances, I can't be certain of that, but that's the date I've been given so far.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll be looking for that. And then also your chapbook, No Don't, by What Books Press in 2020. Elena is currently enrolled in Antioch University Santa Barbara's MFA program in writing and contemporary media, and as part of this interdisciplinary adventure, she's writing screenplays and fiction while completing a book of interrupted essays, Voyeur Hour, Poetry, Art, Film, and Desire. I can't wait. That just sounds absolutely fascinating. Also a Pushcart Prize recipient. Her publications include The Best American Poetry, The Paris Review, Verse Daily, Bomb, Percy Books, The Eloquent Poem, The Kyoto Journal, Poetry International, and New American Writing, among others. So, Elena, take it away.
Thank you, Amanda. It was wonderful. I want to thank Daniel, of course, for his incredible work with this, with Plume, and keeping poetry alive in its diverse best. And thank you, Zach, for being our technician today and also hosting us. So I'm really excited to hear the other readers. I'm just going to read 3 poems. The first poem is in the Plume 9 anthology, and the other 2 have just came out recently, and I don't remember the number of the issue, but it's another Plume issue. So I'm going to start with that. And these are all semi-ekphrastic poems from my forthcoming book. Magritte's forged banknotes. Mother is still drowning in an acre green ocean made from wet firing squad blindfolds. She's the gone money I can't stop giving away. She's gone, except in the returning rhetoric of sleep. No one will ask you to turn your back to the mirror to see yourself in yourself. The heart is one dome immortal jellyfish pulsing the hurting rib cage hours. No one will ask you. It's money under the sand pillow when you sleep. You will wake with pulled baby teeth. No one will ask you to give her to memory because she's already there. Sorry, I lost my place. She's already there, eaten by sea clouds on the event horizon. If you can paint anything, you can be someone else, you can repeat yourself, find your way back. No, jellyfish have no brains. Mother, no more feelings now than the ones I red-tide remember receiving. I hang them. I keep them as counterfeit notes for the one ink dark day when all bets are off. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you're all familiar with Hokusai's famous wave painting, but you might not be familiar with the fact that he actually murdered his wife and his wife's lover. All right. Without Hokusai's great wave, there would be no modern art. That's the title of an article that I read by Angus Lockar. And there would be no Rothko's sand blue over brown, incalculable equation to grind paint between your teeth. I hear night's shore pouring its black gravel over my head, embedded mica flecks shining under the one eye that refuses to close. Laughter is exile's closest partner, anger's better half. Gutted, no gray backwash, sister-ribbed and undressed in the moraine ravine filled with flood, or a fallen cow's bloated belly, suffering another morning's wet heat. Paper boats set sail when you commerce, sea spray like blown snow in her drift. No accidental love or revolution, no rat and salmon goodnight story, piece of rope for hanging on. Without his great wave, his masculine wave, feminine wave, there would be no confusion as to what had to come next. The sea is never late coming home as it is. Without him, no lover's mother impression left in her only tossed coffin box, the size of one shoe, floating between kelp blades, pod bladders, soda ash wash, and November's green pincushion of rain. There would be no woodblock sound, no murdered kohade kohehi bone and flax-skinned ghost, pulling back his mosquito net for us to see Hokusai's wife and new lover, putting to bed the night's vanishing boats, heavy cargo overboard. I know what the shore bottom's shadow is like, not to breathe, or breathe there twice, because the greater sea only wants to live. And gosh, that went fast. Maybe I'm reading too fast. Okay, that's fine. I'll give everyone else more time. This last poem is based on a video that Laurie Anderson, the artist, made in reference to Hurricane Sandy. And she made a lot of references to galaxies in the universe and to different names of galaxies, which I've interwoven into this text. And also it reminded me of an incident when I was a child, when my older brother and his friends were playing with M80 bombs. Do you remember those? Anyway, they're very loud. And it's also an homage to many of the ecological problems that we're facing and will continue to face. Which war is this, Laurie Anderson? Knit heavy clouds darning. Haven't we earned the right to combat, earned heart of a dog knowing home? This live river splitting its blackened stitch gives up the uncut gemstones while crossing streets, highway over Central Park's grass. The flooded hurricane's downed daylight overhead, a Hoag's cloud, felt now like one farmer's 1,000-year field plowed open as the mouth of another child shot in our new town. New country cigar galaxy that the naked eye can't see, not meant to be smoked past, making stars. Also the M82 star, like those red thumb-sized bombs my brother and friends placed in storm drains beneath our houses. So many M80 spring sewers ago, waking dusk into believing it was dawn. Now water, freak water, raises moon's dead river into the bled glitter instead of road, where just as injustice as match lit in the mouth, as this city drowning within its own arms. What time is it if you can't hear it coming? Carrying the horizon's cow carcass, imaginations air-sized and unclear. What stars thrown dice? like pulled teeth from your head will it be? Which war making of ourselves to see only storm? Okay, thank you. I'm delighted to introduce our next poet, my friend, Lois P Jones, who's also really played her part in our community. Her first collection is called Night Ladder, and her awards include the Lascaux Poetry Prize, the Bristol Poetry Prize, judged by Liz Berry, and the Tiferet Poetry Prize. Jones's work her published work is forthcoming in Plume, Komunyakaa editions, New Voices, Contemporary Writers, Confronting the Holocaust, Narrative Verse Daily, and Tupelo Quarterly. She is the poetry editor for the Kyoto Journal and host of Pacifica Radio's Poets Cafe on KPFK in Southern California. It's an incredible series of interviews that she does. I'm just going to briefly also say something about her work. Besides being, a conscientious spokesperson for the art of poetry, she understands that every occasion of seeing contains some devotional resolve. As Donald Ravel pointed out, attention is transport, and this really is accurate when we're thinking about Lois's work. As a result of her transformative strengths and her empathic mind, the timeless balancing act between the internal and external worlds, when language becomes an ongoing spiritual journey. Her consciousness dimensionalizes the synesthesia, much like Rilke's description of the autumn earth in his letters on Cézanne. And her lyric meditations reside sonically between fulmination and adoration, corporeal grief and joy, and from within the stars' afterlife, water, sky, any number of things. She is a poet of the world, and her poem that she's going to read mirrors how Rilke's love of his silence became also his live-in housekeeper, Freda Baumgartner's by association. You can read more about this, but this is from her forthcoming next collection, which is called A Stranger's Need. And I envy those of you who get to hear her for the first time. Please give a warm welcome to Lois P Jones.
Wow, thank you so much, Elena. That is, I feel like I just want to go away now and stay in the glow of that beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. My thanks to you and to Danny and Amanda and the Writers Center for hosting this wonderful event. I'm really very, very honored to be with you here, to be with Yusef and Elena and Laren. As Elena said, my poem appearing in Plume 9 is a mirror of Rilke's love of silence. And as poets, we all recognize the value of silence and its necessity. And of course, Rilke took this to extremes in order to facilitate an environment where he could write his greatest works. I started to consider what it would be like to exist in the same space with him. And while he's never had a history of long time live-in lovers, he did have housekeepers who were really more than cooks and cleaners. They were companions, and especially his last housekeeper, Freda Baumgartner. I was really excited to discover a memoir that she'd written about her 5 years with him when she lived at Museau and before he died in 1926. And I had it translated by Eva West from the German. And it really revealed the depth of the relationship they had, her craving for literature, her walks and talks and gardening. And so, so I'm going to start with, I'm just going to read 2 poems from that and then a last poem. The first poem will be the title, which is the titular poem of the manuscript, A Stranger's Needs. And it starts with an epigraph from her. I mean, she's 26, she's on this train, she's landed in the middle of nowhere with this poet, in 1921. What's going to happen? So it's a crazy journey. The epigraph says, Chateau Musée is extremely primitive. The rooms were comfortable, but there was no electricity and no running water in the house. Freda Baumgartner, 1921. In the beginning, I knew nothing. Not of the steel pots that required constant scrubbing, or the way to press a shirt of linen. Wait for the iron to smell like burnt leaves on an October morning. Not of how to bathe in a castle without plumbing, cotton cloth dipped in an icy pail of water, a dab of lavender to scent the skin. Nothing of how to undress by paraffin lamp in the cold knot of December, or the desires of a body at 26, all of me rising into the belly. I had to learn to live in silence. He wanted another Lenny, a woman who walked like a cat by moonlight and understood his needs with a single look. How could I find my way to a man who has no map? Sometimes I would say to the mirror, this is not the life you promised. Sometimes I would say to the bed, someone will carry me like a candle to their chapel. Taking a breath. So the next poem is the poem that's in Plume, and it's called Freda's Glove. Chateau Musée, summer 1922. She comes downstairs and has a discovery, and the epigraph tells us Rilke's thoughts on his maid's glove. So this comes from The Poetics of Space by Bachelard. The poet Rilke enjoyed donning his maid's suede gloves and dusting furniture in the wee hours of the morning, like caressing the body of a lover. After this, he said, there is nothing that you do not know. There was a candle burning inside my brow. I could not pinch its flame, so I crept out of the fevered bed to the forest of our floors and their cool against my feet. Green and green again, like moss ribbon sewn to our felt tree. There was a shadow near the window. Then just a hand at first, moving up the velvet drapes, independent as a whistle from nowhere. A thin figure appeared, fingers and thumb gliding up the drape's edge. Something at the wrist, a thickness. Between the fingers like a new skin, a fourchette with a slight webbing that layered the delicate hand. My suede glove moved up the plaited cord, then down. One finger drew a line from forehead to neck, and I felt as if it traced my own throat, down to the clavicle, then up to the edge of my left lobe. I shivered. The moon shook too, so sewn to the poet's mind that the fabric of our scene tilted, then buried itself in the night's seam. Thank you. So I'm a little hesitant if I should read one more, or how is that, Amanda?
Yeah, please. Yes, go
Okay.
for it.
Okay.
One more.
One more. All right, one for the road. So this is a little cheating though. It's a 3-part poem, but hopefully not too long. So I've been thinking about blessings and where blessings come from. And the Hebrew text of the Baruch says that God is the source of all blessings, but I think they come from unknown places. And so this sort of examines that. 1, my neighbor was from the old country, her babushka the color of her Bezoar goat. She came toward me on Ash Wednesday as if I were an apparition, a saint appearing like a gift in her garden. Her bones had already lost their breath, and her eyes held the remains of villages, children too small to walk the long road, parents strapping them in boxes on the sides of donkeys, babies and the old dying without water or shelter, places where danger hadn't passed. At 13, I wanted to be a nun, to love without need to filter resin from the grape. I was called to the church more than once, the church of innocence, the church of the psychotic father, the church of womanhood, the church of poetry and its illuminated manuscripts. They've all burned down except for one in this half-finished heaven. I clarify wine no more than I'm the saint my neighbor needs. Still, I smile down at her, not understanding Armenian, only the gesture as her hand hovers from right to left shoulder. Am I dead or blessed? I cannot bring back her ancestors. 2, bless the boy who shot the boy, then pointed it at his own temple with an automatic pistol, the mine's nave closing over the steel chamber, each bullet handmade by the father who was found dead on the floor by his boy 2 years before. Bless the mothers, swans turned upside down, necks reaching toward the moss of the seabed. Bless the 10,000 souls who gathered in Santa Clarita to grieve the ghosts, the many who gave thousands to the shooter's mother, the ones who said, we must continue to bless all the empty beds. And 3, for David White. Didn't it seem as if the nave of the church grew as tall as a eucalyptus, our silence a mist hovering above its crown? And didn't it feel as if he were holding our silence from across the podium, certain as his linen shirt, as he looked out at the pews, his eyes reaching into our gorges of loss, our fractured thoughts of a nation split down its middle? I thought of the Baruch, which says God is the true source of all blessings. But I have been kissed on the cheek, and it was a small rain that left nothing but thoughts of what it was and what it wasn't, as if a tree pressed lips to skin, its green skirting the house of you, sweeping from room to room, filling the floorboards with its breath, your walls becoming water, the body forgetting it carried anything at all. Thank you.
Bravo,
Thank you.
bravo.
Thank you.
Wow, Lois and Elena, thank you. That was just amazing, and so many just wonderful lines. I'm scribbling on my pad here that I don't want to forget. You know, how could I find my way to a man who has no map? Wow, poems are so embodied. Elena, the greater sea only wants to live. Just so stunning and beautiful. Thank you both so much. That just what a treat. And so I'm going to turn now and introduce our second pair of readers. And because they're going to be reading collaboratively, and also I think each of them is going to be reading a poem or two individually, but I'm going to introduce them together and then and I'll say a few words about their collaboration. So Yusef Komunyaka's books of poetry include Dinky Dow. I hope I said that the right way, Yusef. Dinky Dow, one of my favorite poetry books, by the way. Neon Vernacular, of course, for which he won and received the Pulitzer Prize. War Horses, Emperor of Water Clocks, and Everyday Mojo Songs of Earth, which is forthcoming from FSG. And I believe that is collected, but also, or select, new and selected, I believe, that collection. His honors include the William Faulkner Prize from the Université Rennes in France, the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, and the 2011 Wallace Stevens Award. His plays, performance art, and libretti have been performed internationally and include Saturnalia, Wakanda's Dream, Testimony, and Gilgamesh. He served as the New York State Poet from 2016 to 2018. Laren McClung is the author of a collection of poems, Between Here and Monkey Mountain by Sheep Meadow Press, and it has has an amazing cover too. It's just a beautiful book. And she's the editor of the anthology Inheriting the War, Poetry and Prose by Descendants of Vietnam Veterans and Refugees by W.W. Norton. And I'll post some links in just a minute. Her poems have appeared in Harvard Review, Poetry, Yale Review, Boston Review, and elsewhere, and she teaches at New York University. So a word about their collaboration, and this is in Yusef's words, so Yusef, I'm quoting you. At the start of the pandemic, I wrote 9 lines, 3 tercets, and asked Laren to write a response in 3 tercets. This correspondence of improvisations has continued throughout this strange time, and perhaps the poetic dialogue has been led by the sway of language, the movement of 2 minds at play, and the nature of this unfolding moment. It's just amazing. So without further ado, welcome Yusef and Laren.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start with trading riffs to slave monsters. Night sweat, dew on spring grass. See how a lonely mirror is made to perspire. A tapestry of losses, unwoven in truest puppet light. Fingers trace cheekbone as if to map or unmask a face held within, scanned the 1980s. I know how it hurts to think plague as mothers bear its sons. Love unhinging muscle and cinder. Fathers, brothers, and uncles, curses on their tongues. Not all alone.
Those are my lines, Sam. It's okay. Not all alone are lonely, but we learn to let go, even of those we've given ourselves to truly. Plague, war, or virus, in any century or decade, a moment may arrive as a gust, sweeping the halls into a wind tunnel. Yeah, standing before our dead beloveds in threes or lined in rows is enough to knock us off high horses. See, nightingales sing in private where we all hear.
An echo sounds through the door of no return. And we stood there in Accra, facing the grandmothers, holding HIV grandbabies, a few nuns, A few nurses swaying, rocking their souls in strong arms, their eyes closed, as if not to win this. Hungry birds pecking the air. Do not ask me why. I wanted the babies to cry, to raise their voices and let Earth know.
Yes, this May Day, I think of all the lost souls born to struggle, the almost born. In a nest where a robin once lay blue eggs, 3 small blind cowbirds squawk into dawn. Out of a brutal hunger, nature's prayer for a juicy grub granted by the mystery of the mother who circles above now. In a time of cockamamie blues, who can guess how fate or nature will bless or punish love?
It only takes a strong wind, a gusty flame, to run down the coastline and turn paradise into hell. But now and then, there's a love knot, flesh grows around, and no one dares to untie with him or bet. The unusual, the one of a kind, the only one to certainly grow pricey. Think of the tulip craze, the diseased ones, their unnatural hues. Now, that's a clue to the DNA of a soul, spirit, or question.
I think you're talking Cain and Abel, betrothed to marry the other's twin, before one's offering wasn't blood enough for the old god, not bull or ram, but cantaloupe. There must be bloodshed, a clean scapegoat to project our own burden of sin to free us from curse or inheritance. No cloud or wind will cure the past without a covenant.
I'm going to read an old poem for Amanda. It is titled Somewhere Near. Let me start over. I should say this. This is the first poem I wrote as part of the Vietnam collection, Somewhere Near Phu Bai. The moon cuts through night trees like a circle of saw, white hot. In the guard shack, I lean on the sandbags, taking aim at whatever. Hundreds of blue still stars cut a path, fanning out silver for a second. If anyone's there, don't blame me. I count the shapes 10 meters out front, over and over, making sure they're always there. I don't dare blink an eye. The white painted backs of the Claymore mines, like quarter moons. They say Victor Charlie will paint the other sides and turn the blast towards you. If I hear a noise, will I push the button and blow myself away? The moon raises treetops. I count the claymores again, thinking about buckshot meted into the plastic C4 of the brain, counting sheep before I know. it's interesting to go back for a moment and find oneself in the same place that one had forgotten. Blue dementia. In the days when a man could hold a swarm of words inside his belly, nestled against his spleen, singing. In the days of night riders, when life tongued a reed, to blues and sorrow song, call out of the deep night, another man done gone, another man done gone. In the days when one could lose oneself all up inside love that way, and then moan on the bone till the gods cried out in someone's sleep. Today, already, I've seen 3 dark-skinned men discussing the weather with demons and angels, gazing up at the clouds and squinting down into iron grates along the fast streets of luminous encounters. I double-check my reflection in plate glass and wonder, am I passing another Lucky Thomason, a Marion Brown, cornered by a blue dementia, another dark-skinned man who woke up dreaming one morning and then walked out of himself dreaming? Did this one dare to step on a crack in the sidewalk, to turn a midnight corner and never come back whole? Or did he try to stare down a look that shoved a blade into his heart? I mean, I know something about night riders and catgut. Yeah, honey, I know something about talking with ghosts. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Mm.
I want to just say also thank you to Danny for curating this amazing anthology, and to Amanda for hosting, and to Elena, Lois, and to Yusef for reading and letting me be part of this with you. I'm just going to read 2 poems here from my newest my manuscript, my work in progress. This is the title poem, Dreaming While Awake. I should maybe just say that my dad who's a Vietnam veteran, has late stage dementia. And so that's just something that we've been going through. So, dreaming while awake. He sees the bad men wandering the house. Hooligans, he calls them, thieves. They pass through dim lit rooms where he sits to watch the evening news, about to sip a cup of tea. These men could be one of us. His wife transforms her mouth in midst of speech murderers in an episode of Sherlock Holmes, and then a sappers he once buried in Chinon. Or sometimes that same mouth, the betrayers returned to claim the pay. He fears them all, my God, he says, and pleads with me to intervene. I do when I'm myself and singular. Yet I too am not always so, but many selves at once as time collapses in those hemispheres of now and gone. He holds my hand, asking for the one who's drifted through, the other daughter with my name. He sees her crouching down in an attic in his home, which is always someplace else, some other home, not here, but in the past, as he pulls his jacket on to hurry out again. I'm waiting there, But now his hands tremble as he steps into the nearing dark because he knows he has abandoned me. I'm here, I say. We're home. Look. There's the field. There's the ocean now on the prevailing winds. Sorry. First time I'm reading this out loud, so to an audience anywhere. I'm grateful that we are here together after, even though it's on Zoom, just this long year of isolation has just been so hard. I'm going to read one last poem, which is the first poem actually in my manuscript, and it's called Green Man. He gazes as three minds watching, not friend or foe, but forest dweller, guardian spirit, weird vagrant or stranger. I wonder how long he has blessed the cobblestone alley, a detour to the canal, where mules pulled boats with coal and lumber up the towpath, down the seaboard, before the iron horse. Who carved him here with his mouth ready to breathe or whistle a tune, not human, more bat or owl, barely audible, but commanding time. Likely an Irish mason exhumed him from limestone, struck the chisel with club hammer to set him loose, back before Coryell's ferry burned and Washington slept in New Hope, then crossed the river wielding fate. Beloved, don't trouble the lodestone who guards this narrow path where day divides darkness and light of the moon touches his face. Step softly on this harvest moon, and the soothsayer will carry us over the threshold of Aquatong Spring into vegetable silence. His eyes glow fire's glaring gloam, and to stand before him is to know all lively things return to the ground that grows us, or we will burn. Sometimes when I feel you near, I see him among found objects, spread like taro on a wooden table, a figure on horseback, dagger with silver hilt, cat's eye tourmaline, and ebony mask with quartz tusks. The shaman sings, "This mountain I must climb, nowhere left to hide." A hand takes each object one by one, but leaves the green man, his crown and beard of acanthus leaves. Vines bloom from his nostrils and mouth. He unburies himself from stone, and I taste earth on my tongue. Thank you.
Wow. I feel like I need to take a deep breath. That was amazing. And Laren, I'm so sorry about your dad. But I want to just thank you for bringing your work with us and sharing it with us here today in this space, and your willingness to be vulnerable. And thank you, Yusef, too, for reading all of your work and your collaborations together, but especially Somewhere Near Fubai, which holds special meaning to me. So thank you very deeply for that. And I'm sorry. I'm deeply grateful, really, to all of you for just this space today. So, and Elena and Lois, you too. This has been a phenomenal reading, and I was going to ask some questions. I'm not sure that I don't know. I kind of feel like we maybe just need to let it be and sit with all of that. So Danny, if you're okay with that, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yes.
kick it back to you, and I'm just gonna stop kind of rambling now.
No. First, let me thank everyone, Yusef and Laren and Elena and Lois and Zach, at the Writing Center, of course, and Amanda and Nancy and Liam. This is far more, Plume has become, although I sort of got it off the ground, it's become much more a collaborative effort. It belongs as much to the staff as it does to me, certainly, if not more. I'll just say that each time we've done, I think maybe 5 of these readings in conjunction with the anthology. And each time I think, okay, that was the best. No, the next time, no, that was the best. And they have become so meaningful to me, and the alchemy of the voices, it is a magical thing to see and to hear. So thank you all profoundly. It's been wonderful. Thanks.
Much love and peace to all.
Thank you.
Yes.